Hello, it's Mia here. I am creating this 5-part video series for you so that you can make a plan for really thriving through this time when we are stuck home, balancing our work with our kids and our homes and all the things and all the fear that's just floating around the coronavirus. So, I have created already 3 of the videos. This is the 4th in the series. So we started off with just a framework, a foundation for how you could look at planning in a holistic way during this time. It is based off of my flow planning process. And then we went into what that would look like in terms of mindset. Then we went to food, and now we are at work and homeschooling. So I'm skipping around the flow planning process a little because I find that sometimes we just need to be flexible enough to pivot. And I think that taking things out of my usual order is super helpful right now. Another thing that's a little bit different is I'm doing this. If you're watching this as a video, it is a slideshow because I'm in a house with 3 kids and a husband, and we're all doing our best to do the work that we need to do and shuffle around throughout the day and help each other and stay out of each other's way and all the things. And one of the ways that I could help was to be able to hide out in my room with the door closed, sometimes in a closet, recording these for you and not being on screen. So that's the story behind these. But I have to say, making colorful slides with typography was super therapeutic for me. So it was a good finding. So let's talk a little bit about the flow process as a whole. Again, this is the 4th of 5 videos, so make sure to go back and watch the others because that might help this all make sense. But the flow planning process was something that I created a couple years back. It's got created into an actual physical 90-day planner. And usually we're looking at 90-day chunks. But the point of it is to set really big goals for yourself, like the 10-year kind, and then really figure out what that means that you need to focus on for the next 90 days and how that flows forward into your months, into your weeks, and into your days. And the other component of it is that flow stands for food and wellness, lifestyle and family, which is spirituality, mindset, self-care, and work. So it really is looking at life in a holistic place so that all these things can be on the same pages because you are living one life. And I found very often we were dividing our different areas of our life so they weren't coming together into one cohesive system. So again, these are the 4 categories, and in this video, we're going to focus on the work piece as our goal might be right now, which is how to work from home while homeschooling our kids, which we're a couple weeks in as I'm recording this, and we all have a couple weeks left to go. So we're not at the end of this yet. And there's a lot of things we can do to make it easier, to make it better. And some days I actually feel like it's really good. So I hope this helps you. So first off, the story that I'm hanging on to the most right now is when I electively took a year off. Actually, it was the year off that turned into the flow planning process because I took a year off. I didn't take a year off. I had very much a year in, which is why it mimics right now. But I took my kids out of school for a year, I should say, to go on my book tour. This was 4 or 5 years ago now. And my book had just become a bestseller, Plan Simple Meals. And I spoke a lot about how to end up at the family dinner table and just had this knowing that I couldn't be in California talking to a group of moms about this while my kids were back here in Boston. So I took them out of school. We went on this road trip and I invested in a homeschool program that I thought would really support my kids. It was not cheap. It was really well thought out. It looked really cool, all the things. I put it into one very big tote bag that weighed about 1 bazillion pounds, and off we went on our road trip. And about 4 weeks in, one of my kids, because they do this, commented on the fact that we hadn't opened the tote bag yet. And I realized this was true. And it was in that moment that I really let go because I realized my kids were thriving in a way that they had not thrived in a long time. They were really paying attention when we read a book or when we went to a museum. They were really tuned into conversations. They were sleeping better than they ever had. They were eating better than they ever had. And I realized we just needed a break. And so the reason I'm telling you this is because pretty much for a year, with a few exceptions, we took a break. And there was a moment when my oldest, who at the time was in 7th grade, said he really thought he needed to learn math, and we got a tutor. And we learned the year of math in 3.5 weeks. And it was not that he was exceptional in math. It really made a difference for him in his next years of math to have that 3.5 weeks. But the point was, it's pretty efficient to do it by yourself. And so what I learned was it's okay to take time off, that it's okay that we're not totally in the structure of school. And this is really helping me right now because one of my kids got all the structure and 2 of them got nothing from their schools as we're in this time off. And even the one who got a lot of things from her school, we're just taking it easy and it's okay. And I know that they will go back and they will enter into their next grade. And even if they skipped over a few key things, they'll just start off where they're starting off and it will all be fine. And that is really what that year taught me. And I remember that quite frequently right now. And I'm giving you that story because I really do believe that it's true, that it's okay to have this break. And we'll talk a little bit more about some things we can consider in this break. Okay. Another thing that I'm going to talk a little bit, or I'm going to refer to a couple times throughout this, so I just want to present it as an idea right now, is that adults need to come first right now. And a lot of times what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing a lot of online and in my community is that we're putting our kids' needs first because we're worried about schooling them. And so then we're not doing our work as well as we could, whether that's at an office or we're an entrepreneur or our work is being a parent. It's a lot of energy. It's a full-time job right now to show up as a parent, much less do your work, because we're dealing with a lot of different energies and we really need to put our needs first. And we're going to get into what some of those might be. So another thing is that our spouse is home too if we have a spouse. And even in that year of homeschool, I have to admit, my husband was off doing his thing a lot, so his work. And it's different when there's 2 adults in the house at all times. So communication and planning is really, really important right now. Like really important. Because the thing is we can get away with, an argument one afternoon and then sleeping it off, or an argument one morning and then going off on our separate ways and like working through it ourselves while we're at our own days and then coming back together for dinner and being okay. But we're not in that situation right now. We are together all the time. So it's really important to communicate and have a plan. And I'm going to argue that your plan should really include taking care of yourself in the best way that you can. So this is the concept that we're going to really talk about in this video, which is the idea of time blocking, and really time blocking the week and understanding what the rhythm is and what you're going to do in different blocks of time. So this is less about the appointment mentality of I'm going to do this at 8:30 and this at 9:30 and I have this appointment at 10:30, because that's not the kind of life we're living right now. But it is about, I'm going to spend this 1 hour chunk taking care of myself. I'm going to spend this 2 hour chunk really focused on my work. Then I'm going to spend this 2 hour chunk really focused on my kids. So we're chunking up the day so that we can see the pattern, we can see the rhythm, and we can see how it all fits together. So order is really important right now. And this order is going to be a little not intuitive maybe to you, or a little different than something you've heard. I'm hoping it actually is intuitive, but that you've ignored this intuition for some time. But the order is really, really, really important in us showing up as our best selves at this time for our family, for ourselves, and for our work. So you're going to see that I'm going to put work in a slightly different place in the order than you might think, but it will allow you to really give more to your work, I believe. And this is all sort of around this idea that work and school are important, but the stuff around it is really important too, especially right now. So yes, we're focused on how to work at home. Yes, we're focused on how to get our kids to learn at home, but actually the stuff around it is really what's going to keep us connected and surviving and even thriving during this time. So that is why we start with self-care. So the first thing that I want you to think about time blocking. And by the way, if you're looking at this at YouTube or hearing about this on the podcast, you need to go to plansimple.com, and at the top of the page, there's a bar right now while we're still in this coronavirus era that has a link to a page that has all the videos, has some extra resources, and also has the planning sheets. So on there, you can find a weekly planning sheet that you could use to time block your time, but also the tool is not important right now. You could do this in your electronic calendar. You could do this on a piece of poster board. You can do it in your a scrap piece of paper. It doesn't matter. The point is that you're acknowledging some benchmark times in the day, and you are drawing rectangles and really claiming that time for certain aspects of your life. And the first one I want you to think about is, when in the day will you focus on 30 minutes of self-care for you, and when can you give your husband or spouse permission maybe to do it for themselves as well. We cannot force this on another human being, but you can create the space. You can take care of the kids. You can say this is your half hour and have given that to the other adults in the house. The thing is that the better you are to yourselves as adults, the better you will be to your kids. And I could even also add to here work for sure. Now, this is the first thing that we're scheduling in. And I do find that if I schedule this in first thing, and it's something I'm finding is really working for me right now in the current state of things, is that if you schedule it in first thing and you get it done, then you really feel like you're starting your day as a whole person in a different way. That said, there are many times when I want you to schedule it in first, but maybe it fits in better at 12 or at 4, but I just don't want it being scheduled in later to be an excuse for you not to do it. I personally am finding right now that waking up before everybody and having an hour and a half to myself alone, which is something that is happening not very often right now, that alone time, is really helpful. So I am doing in the mornings. But that said, a few days ago in the middle of the day, I was like, you know what? I haven't taken a shower in a few days. So I'm going to treat myself to a 1 o'clock afternoon shower. And I have to say, it was like the best shower ever. So the next thing you're going to do, so you're going to get that self-care piece in first. It doesn't need to happen first in the day, but it needs to be the first thing you schedule. So my idea is that you're scheduling, you're looking out a week, you're time blocking for a week or at least a 3-day period of time. And as you do that, the first thing you're going to consider is when you'll get in that self-care. The second thing you're going to do is get really clear about what work and school is for your family right now. This is really important because we're getting a lot from, we're getting a lot of input from the outside in, but now nobody's like in our space. Nobody's in our world. Nobody's checking up on us on the same way that they would when we're out in the world. So you need to get super clear. So let me give a little example to this. So I'm really clear that my husband and I both have work we need to do. He needs to sort of be there for more consistent hours because he's a manager and he's trying to get people on his team to work the same way. I need to get certain things done so I can be more efficient, and I can do things like this video sneaking into my closet late at night or early in the morning. But I don't need to be working all day. So I need to get really clear about what work I need to do. I'm like so pulled right now to help you however I can plan for your days in a way that help you thrive as a parent, as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a mother. So I'm like super passionate about that right now. And I have to get really clear about what that means in terms of how I show up. Now, the other thing I'm pretty clear about is what I want for my kids. Like, I don't want them on video games all day. We don't have really that big of we only have access on phones and computers and whatnot to that, but that's not where I want them all day. I don't want them on digital devices. One, because only 2 of my 3 kids even have access to that, so it makes the third one feel bad. But also, this is now longer than the 2-week vacation thing we thought we were having. It's, a long haul, and I want them learning and engaged. And I really want this to be an opportunity for all of us, like for myself included, to do things that we always say we don't have time for. So that's what I'm really looking at in terms of work and school for my kids. Now, the reason it's important to make this choice in advance is because one of my kids' schools is super organized and we have all the things. 2 of my kids' schools, one of whom's in high school, are not. Like, there is no new material being taught. And so we really need to he needs to figure out what he wants to do. Now, luckily, my kids are have a lot of things they love. So someone's taking an online art class. I have an athlete who's doing all his workouts with his team. I have a daughter who is an avid reader. So she's been spending a lot of time reading. But we need to be really clear about the time in the day and what can fill it, because it does not do any good for me to sneak into my closet and make these videos thinking that my kids are consuming content that I don't want them to be consuming. Like, that doesn't make me feel good. So that's why you have to get super clear about what all this looks like for you, and then create a schedule based on that, because schools are going to tell us what they can do for us. Work is going to tell us what they can do for us. But again, we're the ones here stuck in our homes. Okay. So in doing that, once you get really clear on that, then what the next step is really to ditch the concept of 9 to 5 and 9 to 3. Now, as an entrepreneur, this is super easy for me. It's kind of how I've always lived. But what I didn't realize until my husband came home is that this is not at all how he thinks, nor is it how my kids think. Because every day as I'm diving into my entrepreneurship, they're going off to school from 8 to 3, and my husband's going off to work from 9 to 5, and I have this clear window actually from 9 to 3. So though I've been really flexible throughout motherhood, I actually myself am back to a pretty regular, while the kids are in school, work schedule. And I'm trying not to do those late nights and those early mornings. But right now is a time to really think about when you want to work, how you can work smarter. As I said in that homeschool story, maybe school doesn't have to take that many hours. Maybe work doesn't have to take that many hours. Maybe we can actually learn how to be more efficient. So this is less about burning the midnight hours or waking up at dawn to do the stuff you need to do, and more about how can you be most efficient? How can you really get what you want out of your days? Think about the whole puzzle of the family too. So when work times overlap, like when you and your partner have to work or be on a call at the same time, have an agreement with your kids, depending on what age they are, of what they'll be doing. We're having agreements with high school kids, but, you might have to be a little bit more firm with a toddler about what they can be doing during that time. And then match it with the appropriate kid possibility. We talked about possibilities in video 1. So go back and look at that. That's all the things that you can do right now because we're in this state versus all the limitations. And when stuff doesn't overlap, maybe you want to spend more time with a kid. You want to give more attention to the kids because you can do that because you can make up for work at a different time or just simply be more efficient. Does this make sense? So as you're blocking out your time, don't start by saying, okay, self-care has to happen before 8 because then I get ready and then I have to go to work from 9 to 5. Really think outside the box now that you're in this position. And here's the other thing I want to say. And we're going to get into 2 more things that you're going to put into your schedule. But start with a messy, rough draft. Just start doing this. Start looking out at the next 2 days, the next 3 days, or even the next week, and know that it's going to be messy, that you're going to have to learn, and that you will get this, that you will learn more and more the longer that we're in this. And, I don't know about where you live, but for us, that just got extended. So we have the whole month of April to get through as well at the time that I'm recording this. So It's a lot. It's a lot. And so we're going to have to just keep going and learning. So let's get to the other two pieces that I want to make sure that you make time for. So the last video was all about health and food, and I really want you to make time for that. And what an opportunity to make time for food, because I think you will carry this habit back in to your life as things start turning back on. And if you can sort of get these habits are much deeper than just I'm making dinner and we're sitting down. Once you really get into the rhythm of it, they can be really nurturing. And you'll remember that they were nurturing during this hard time. So I highly recommend making time for that. You can do things like add time in your calendar for meal making, which is something we very often forget when we're running around like crazy people. You may schedule in shopping, especially now since we are having to shop for more time in one shop. You can really ditch what you know and make it work for your day. So if you always are the kind of person who like eats lunch at 12 and dinner at 6, is that really when you're hungry? Is that really when you're wanting to eat? I still schedule it in advance, but play around with the times and make it work for how you can show up, how you're needing to show up right now. Something I learned last week was that I didn't want to make lunch every day at 12. So I went back to actually how it worked for school, where we thought about it in the morning and then, made lunch so we could keep working through at noon. I am doing a big block of work chunk in the morning, early before anybody wakes up, instead of doing my movement and meditation, which I'm doing later. So just, move stuff around and figure out what works best for your days. It really is like a big puzzle and can be fun if you let it be. If you feel like food is taking over, you can do the trick. There's a lot of tricks you can do. So one is that you could do the thing that I just said, which is, make lunch early, or, even prep dinner early. Or another thing you can do is batch. So make 3 meals on one day so that you have them for the other days. Like, just maybe have a cooking day. And the cool thing about right now is it doesn't necessarily have to be a weekend day. It could be a weekday. You could even do it with your kids. So really schedule that in and make sure you have time for the food stuff so that you're really nurturing your health. And then the last thing that I want you to think about putting into your calendar is that list of possibilities. So if you haven't listened to, I can't remember whether I talked about it in video 1 or video 2. I think it might be video 2, where we talked about the list of possibilities and really just, instead of seeing all the limitations of right now, making a list of all the things you can do right now that you've never had time for. So things you've wanted to learn to do, classes that you've wanted to take, books you wanted to read, connections that you've wanted to have in your family. There's so many possibilities. So make sure that you're making time for those, and scheduling movement and outside time and downtime and new rituals. These are all things that I want you to have on your list of possibilities. Okay? All right. So each evening, so what you're going to do is you're going to, and this is just reinforcing what I talked about in the first video. And that is that each evening you're going to recommit to what you decided. So the idea is that you really are trying to think a week out or a couple days out, and you're really time blocking a few days out. Because the thing is when you time block a few days out, not only are you seeing that time can be different on a daily basis, but they can add up over the course of a couple days. So what do I mean by this? I just gave the example of batch cooking, which might mean that you don't give as much time to your work or schoolwork on that day. And so then the next day you wouldn't have to cook, but you'd have more dedicated time to work and schoolwork. So seeing a couple days out is kind of helpful. Maybe it's that one day it's beautiful outside and you go on a really long family walk, but then you have a little less time for something else in that day. So you just start to see it over the course of a week and how all the puzzle pieces fit together. And in this time that's so unusual, I think that's really important to do. And then we get to this piece, which is each evening you're going to recommit to what you decided and really just understand and ask yourself, does my plan still hold? Did I learn anything since I made my plan that is making me change my mind? Like, I don't know, the grocery stores are in a different state and you don't want to go to that one anymore. You want to get your groceries a different way, or maybe somebody in your family got sick, or you're finding that it's really important to you to reach out to your family at large who might not live nearby and you didn't put time in for that. So really look at if there's anything that you need to do to pivot a little bit, and then write out your day. So each evening before your day, or each morning when you wake up, you're writing out your day and you're really understanding what the flow of it is. I highly recommend doing this with your partner, your spouse. You could do it with your kids if they're older. And if you don't do it with your kids, definitely share it with your kids. And it's contagious. My kids definitely have their checklists going on right now. And in that model of adults come first, their checklist fits in with our checklist, right? So we have times that we need quiet because we're on calls or doing recordings like this, and they're doing quiet things in that time. So we're matching our days up. And I'm going to remind you one more time, if you've gotten a ton of ideas about possibilities in work and school, is that remember the first thing that you're putting in your calendar is self-care. Okay? Remember? So this is a really important lesson. The biggest act of self-care is not beating yourself up. So I've heard from many of you that homeschooling your kids is hard. Doing that alongside running a business and being home and cooking meals, it's hard. So let it be hard. It's okay. You don't need to be perfect right now. There's literally nothing right now you need to beat yourself up about. The best thing you can do is be in a loving relationship with yourself and then show up to the rest of this stuff. So if any part of this planning process, any part of all the things you're trying to get done, any part of the things on your calendar are causing you to beat yourself up, please pause and just find that space where you can see yourself doing your best. You have gratitude for all that is happening. Okay? And know that the best thing you can do for yourself, even if you don't schedule anything else in your calendar, is really not to beat yourself up. Okay, so with that in mind, here are some ideas, some work ideas that are specific to these times. So one thing that we've found really useful is moving around the house. So not only are we planning our time, but we're planning our spaces a little bit more with that time. And that's been a really interesting way to look at it. So we start off, as I will reiterate 100 times, with my husband and I. I've been doing a lot of interviews for an event that I get to share with you soon. I'm super excited, but those happen in my kitchen, which is kind of in the middle of things, and we don't have many doors in our house. So during those interviews, everyone needs to be quiet. And then, and my husband might not be in his favorite workplace. Then when I'm not in that state, I'll go with the girls and we have a table where we've set up some art projects, and I'll go to that table, and then my husband can stand up at the kitchen table and do work standing, which he loves to do because he hates sitting all day. So my son, who's in high school, is a rower, and so he's been erging, and when he's erging, it's loud. So we sort of have to figure out this rhythm of how we're moving around the house. We also have instruments going on, and just life with 5 people under one roof. So what does it look like? And it's actually really helpful to move around. I find it's really helpful to have that new perspective and not just sit in one seat all day. So we're trying to make that work for everyone. Okay, the second thing I want to throw out there is to really tune into your intuition and to let go of what you think things are supposed to be like. And the biggest thing in this lesson that we're talking about right now, for me, I think has to do with the hours that it takes to do a full-time job and to go to school. And so really follow your heart as to what you need to be learning, what you need to be doing, and then stick to it. But so that you're not just, on a couch or in bed or whatever the whole time, but really listen to your intuition. And I've heard from a lot of people that they're sleeping more and wanting to be a little bit lazy. And I think some aspect of that is fantastic. And it's like the other chance we're getting right now is to actually let our bodies rest and reset. So really try to let go of what things are supposed to be. It will help you feel a lot better as you're needing to pivot on a daily basis, because things aren't how we think they're supposed to be right now. They're very far from it. So if we can really let go of that and then tune into that knowing which is inside of us of what we're supposed to be doing on a daily basis, it's really it's deeply gratifying and deeply satisfying, and it's really helpful in not feeling trapped and really adding to the freedom that we can feel right now. Okay, the other idea to work with in this time is to really lead with connection and creativity. So obviously we're keeping our physical distance from people, and that can weigh on us because what it does is it eliminates our connection. And we are connective beings. We like to connect with people, even those of us who are introverts. I say this is like the best time ever because I am an introvert, and I like to sort of crawl inside, but I'm also feeling right now the deep need to connect with my kids, with my family, with my husband, with our neighbors, with you all, my community. So I think it's really important to make choices that are connective versus, just have us staring at a screen or getting lonely. So lead with that idea when you're making your plan. When you're choosing between a lot of things, think about connection. The other thing that I'm leading with right now is creativity. And I could have put a whole other slide here about some thoughts around what leads to creativity. But I've heard a lot lately. I hear there seems to be two realms of content for mothers that seems to be shared most right now. One of it is like the perfect schedules, the perfect rhythms, these homeschooled schedules that are rainbow colored and whatever and beautiful. And I'm not knocking them down at all. And I homeschooled for a year, so fully respect anyone who chooses to do that. And I also think we're in a little bit of a different time. Like we're not committing, most of us aren't committing to homeschool forever. Maybe some of us will fall in love with it, but most of us are just trying to bridge right now. So I see a lot of perfect schedules, and then mothers feeling bad or families feeling bad because they're not doing it that perfect way. And I see a lot of the opposite of like, I don't know what all these people are thinking about being so perfect. My kid can just spend the next couple of months playing video games and watching TV, and it's not going to kill them, and I don't care. And though I don't think that it will kill them, I don't think it helps get through this time. I think that creativity and being able to tap into that is a really important skill that we've lost a little bit in our busy world. And this is a great opportunity to really understand and get behind it again. And here's the thing, boredom leads to creativity. So if your kid is saying, I'm bored, that's good. And if we can really work with that and plan for that and know that the 2-hour chunk that we have to get work done and can't entertain our kids and really make a boundary around that and can hear them say they're bored 5 times the first day without letting that be like, oh, just go do this or go watch that or whatever, I won't do my work. If we're not like that, if we just let it be, on the other side of that is their creativity. And I think it's really an opportunity to do that. So we do have to make the space for it. We do have to have the sort of the grit to like hear I'm bored 100 times. But once you hear it a couple times, maybe hopefully not 100, you'll start to see they'll find things to do. And it's so gratifying when that happens. So really leading and deciding what we're doing based on connection and creativity, I think right now is super important. So those are my 3 thoughts about just some weird ideas that you might not hear as much about right now. So move around the house, really think about how you're using your spaces Tune into your intuition instead of the way things used to be or you think they're supposed to be, because they're not that way right now. And really lead with connection and creativity when you're choosing what you're fitting into your work and school day. All right. You can go to plansimple.com, and if you look at the bar at the top of the page, which might be how you got here, there is a link to a page, and that page will always have our next class or community event. I'm trying to do a weekly planning session so that you can plan live your week. And it's just I find it a really exciting time to grow and to be our best version of ourselves. And I think that can happen with our work and our kids' school too, even though I think that's one of our biggest obstacles right now. So I'll see you on the next video where we're going to talk specifically about our homes.